What we're going to do is we're going to continue solving rationals with three terms. Remember, when we have two terms, what we can do is we could cross multiply. Since we have three terms, we can't cross multiply. So what we need is a common denominator. With the common denominator, what we're doing is we're looking at each of our denominators and we're finding one that's common. So 3 times 5 is 15, and we have an x, so that would be 15x. So we're going to multiply each of the terms by 15x. Now, the hardest part is the second step. Once we find our common denominator, what we have to do is we have to cancel. And canceling can be a little tricky. For the first one, we have the 15x. Since we have a 3, what we do is we cancel it. And so the 15 becomes a 5. So what we have is 5x. 5x times 2 gives me 10x. For my second term, I see that the x is here. So I'm canceling the x's. So basically what I'm doing is I'm looking to see what I could cancel. 15 times 3 is 45. For the next one, there's a 5. So I cancel the 5 with the 15, and that gives me a 3. 3x times 4 is 12x. Once again, that's the hardest step. If we could get that step down, the rest isn't too bad because we've already solved linear equations. What we're going to do is we're going to get the x's on one side. So I'm going to subtract 12x. I get negative 2x equals 45. I'm going to divide by negative 2. And I get x is equal to negative 45 over 2. So looking at my next problem with letter E. First step is looking for a common denominator. I have x minus 5. I have 3. I have 4. I know 3 times 4 is 12. And I have an x minus 5. So that would be 12. And then x minus 5. That's my common denominator. I'm going to multiply each of my terms by my common denominator. So now what I'm doing is I'm looking to see what I could cancel. For my first term, I see an x minus 5. So I have a 12 and an x, which would be 12x. For my next one, the 3 and the 12, that would be 4. So what I have is 4 times 1 is 4. And then I have the x minus 5. And then for my last term, the 4 and the 12 cancel, and that gives me a 3. 3 times 3 is 9. And then I have x minus 5. I'm going to distribute the 4 to each of the terms. And I'm going to distribute the 9 to each of the terms. So I have 12x, I'm bringing it down. I have 4x. I have minus 20 is equal to 9x minus 45. I'm going to add the like terms. This right here is 16x minus 20 equals 9x minus 45. I'm going to subtract the 9x on both sides. And when I do that, I get the x's together. So that gives me 7x minus 20 is equal to negative 45. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the 20. And I get 7x is equal to negative 25. Then I divide each side by 7. So my answer is x equals negative 25 over 7. So let's look at our last problem with letter F. Once again, what we're going to do is we're going to look for a common denominator. When I'm looking for a common denominator, I'm looking at the x, looking at the 2, and I'm looking at the 7x. 2 and 7 I know is 14, so common denominator is going to be 14. Both of these already have an x, so I'm just going to put 1x. Not going to put two x's because this only has one x and this only has one x. So I multiply each of the terms by 14x. So for the first one, the x's cancel, and I get 14 times x plus 1. For this one, the 2's cancel. 7 times 1 is 7. And then for the last one, the 7 and the 14 cancel, and the x's cancel. So I have 2 times 8, which is 16. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute the 14 to each of the terms. And I get 14x plus 14 minus 7x equals 16. I look at the like terms. That gives me 7x plus 14 equals 16. I continue solving the equation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract the 14. And I get 7x is equal to 2. And then my last step is divide by 7. So x is equal to 2/7.